Guilty pleasure movies are usually described as movies that are so bad that they're good, but to me, that also means that a movie can be, relatively decent, pretty good, but it's just a movie that you can never get tired of watching. It is your boy Tech. Y'all go ahead, subscribe to join the spooky gang, and come kick it with us as we discuss some of our favorite horror guilty pleasure movies. All right, Spooky Gang. Now, this is my list of some of my favorite guilty pleasure horror movies. Now, like I said, this is my list. So I know everybody has their own favorite guilty pleasure horror movies and movies that you love to throw on. And, you could just put it on at any time and it's always going to be a banger to you, whether the movie is actually good or not. So for all those guilty pleasure horror movies that you guys love, y'all go ahead, drop that down below. It'll be interesting to see all the horror movies that you guys love to watch on the regular. But to go ahead and kick this list off, the very first movie that we'll be talking about in this list is Jason Goes to Hell. I already know what y'all thinking. Jason Goes to Hell is not a good movie, and you're damn right about that. But I love that shit anyway. Like, Jason Goes to Hell is one of those movies that really has me from a nostalgic aspect. I just remember watching this movie so many times back in the day as a kid, and like, although I still realize that movie was not good back then, it's just, it had this little level of charm to it. And and then especially back then, my mom would watch it with me here and there, and we would just always be tripping off of some of the stuff that would happen in the movie. Like, when you think from the aspect of, the very beginning of the movie, which felt like your traditional Friday the 13th, you have this lady that's for some reason in this house that's like completely dark, and she goes to take a shower. In just pure Friday the 13th fashion, we could see, everything building up to, potentially there being a Jason. Boom, Jason appears, and she ends up running away from Jason from that little house or shack. And, Jason's chasing her, and they're running all through the woods, and she lures him into this trap where there's a bunch of military men that are there to now execute Jason. And it was in that moment that you knew something wasn't quite right about this movie, because you have all of this military personnel and all that stuff. They shoot up Jason, blow him up, and then about all you see left is a head and a heart. Okay, boom. So you fast forward, and then you see the ME, the medical examiner, ends up eating Jason's heart. And then you see all these little orange fireflies and all this bull coming out as he's eating them. And then he ends up absorbing all of that. And all of a sudden, now Jason is in his body, and basically Jason is a body hopper for the rest of the movie. Everything about that is wild, and that's why I say, like, no, by no means is this a good movie. Adam Marcus made this movie in '93, and he ain't getting no real work after it, and we all can see why. But yeah, Jason Goes to Hell has a special place in my heart. Creighton Duke as a character is he's one of my favorite horror movie characters. Not on a serious level, but just a goof, just a really good time. Just really enjoy the movie. As dumb as it could be, and it's one of those movies that when I throw it on, it's always gonna be a vibe. The next movie that I want to talk about is the Hostel movie. So the whole Hostel franchise, I'm pretty much a fan of. There's something specific about torture movies that I really enjoy, especially when it's from a revenge angle too. But yeah, I just genuinely really dig the Hostel movies. Some people think that the Hostel movies are pretty good, and some think that they're, whatever it may be. They're not going to win any type of awards by no stretch, but just to me, they're very entertaining movies. And all of the movies, for the most part, are geared around friends going to, a foreign country, and then they, in some way, shape, or form, end up getting involved with this elitist group of people, like, a bunch of rich millionaires and billionaires that spend their money and bid on different torture techniques. So like, some of them, these billionaires that are in this cult club that are doing it themselves, they're doing the torture aspect themselves, or they're sitting there as like an audience watching somebody else get tortured. So like, there's just all of these things that are going on in the movie. And what makes it that much more creepy and great, in my opinion, is the fact that not only do you have to deal with the torturing aspect of everything and then trying to worry about escaping that aspect or whatever, but you're in a foreign country on top of that. So then you have the language barrier that you have to deal with in terms of, plotting your escape. You don't have any familiarity with it or anything like that, and then having to navigate that plus escaping people who are trying to kill you. Like, all that together, I think, makes for really solid movies. From the first one with it being the group of guys, and then the part two with the group of girls, and then part three, like, even though part three is probably considered the worst out of all three of them, but still just overall pretty entertaining movie. So I really love the Hostel franchise, and they just give me a little something that I don't get from the Saw franchise, and that's why honestly I appreciate the Hostel franchise more than I do Saw, even though, you know, Saw is great in its own right. The next movie franchise that I wanted to talk about, which was related to what I mentioned earlier as far as, you know, that revenge aspect of torture, which is I Spit on Your Grave. Now, disclaimer, I want to go ahead and say this up front. By no means do I condone or like anything about SA, you know, any type of assault, anything in that nature. We don't fool with, so I just want to make sure that part was clear. We don't go for none of that. So the things that I like about this movie has nothing to do with that, but everything outside of that. So just the revenge aspect and then the torture that comes along with it. So as we know in these movies, usually it features, you know, some prominent girl, and she ends up getting SA'd, and then she gets revenge on the people who SA'd her, right? In the first one, you have this girl who's going to like her parents' cabin or like lakeside cabin or something like that, and she's going there all by herself, and then these group of hillbillies come bothering her, and then she ends up getting revenge on them in some of the most creative ways. And I just really love seeing how she was able to make them pay for every single thing that they did to her. And similarly with I Spit on Your Grave Part 2, it also goes back to Hostel, being in a foreign country and having to experience different, you know, torture or things that are happening to you. So like that just adds an extra layer to the difficulties and the obstacles that, you know, our prominent main character is going through. I don't know, these movies just have a really nice revenge quality that I love, and every single person who did our, you know, our heroine or our main protagonist, anybody who did them dirty, she does them at least 5 times more dirty. The next movie that I wanted to mention on this list of guilty pleasure horror movies is Barbarian. So Barbarian for me is one of those movies that falls under the second definition that I said, where it's a pretty good movie, and I think it's actually a little better than pretty good, but a pretty good movie that you really just can't get tired of watching, and like the movie pretty much can do no wrong. And Barbarian really fits the bill in every single aspect of that. When I talk about charm, Barbarian has plenty of it, just from Justin Long, which is, we all know Justin Long. Drag Me to Hell, Jeepers Creepers. It don't matter what you throw Justin Long in, Justin Long is going to be Justin Long, and he's going to hold it down and, you know, just be his authentic self, which can be hilarious or just a very high quality character in our horror movies. And then you match that up with Bill Skarsgård, who is really making his own into this horror genre. And you have Georgina Campbell. She was very good in the role. Everything that they're dealing with regarding this mother character and how, you know, she is a result of years and years and years and years of inbreeding and all of this good stuff. And so now she's just this big gray wispy monster. But you see, as the movie progresses, she just truly wants to have her own baby. That's all she wants to have. So that's why she tries to baby Georgina Campbell and tries to baby Justin Long's character AJ. And what made this movie so great and, you know, really a guilty pleasure for me is, when I first watched this movie, I had no idea what it was about. And seeing some of this wild stuff for the first time was just like, mother character was crazy. Then you have the underlying themes of, you know, SA again with the old man Frank that's down there in the basement. And the underlying themes of, you know, the rundown neighborhood. Everything around that house and that community is supposed to be deemed as bad, but the real evil is in the one house that actually looks like it's halfway decent. And then the ending where Justin Long throws Georgina Campbell's character off the top of the little water tower, and then just seeing the mother dive after her while she's falling.
I can get away, but you're gonna have to slow her down. Hey! Come get your baby!
Everything about this movie trips me out, man. This movie is hilarious. There's so many comedic moments, and it's just really dark comedy. It's just, me and my lady watch this movie all the time. Like, I could promise you, there was probably a stretch for probably like a few months where we maybe watched it 4 to 5 times a week just to go to bed to, just because it's like different little things are just so funny, from like I said, Justin Long's Ricky Tikki Tavi song, and then everything lead up to that. And it's a really good movie, and one that I truly cannot get tired of. The next movie that I wanted to talk about is Bride of Chucky. Bride of Chucky is also one of those movies where it's not particularly a good movie. It's the fourth installment in the Child's Play franchise, but once again, kind of similarly to Jason Goes to Hell, it has a lot of nostalgic value for me. Because growing up being at my grandma's house, I would always have, my cousins that would be there, and they had Bride of Chucky on VHS, and we would pop that thing in all the time. And I don't know, just everything about it was great, and still kind of scary because of where I was at that age, but at the same time it was still hilarious because of some of Chucky's dialogue and some of the events that were happening in the movie. And once again, you have to think that this movie is 1998, so once again you see plenty of meta and self-referential concepts and horror tropes that you see in this movie. But yeah, everything is great about it. I think Chucky's great. So Stitch's Chucky for the first time was great, especially how ruthless he is in some of the scenes, especially when it comes to Tiffany. And so that's a nice segue to talk about Jennifer Tilly, who is great leading up to the point where she ends up getting in the doll. And then you seeing her whole conflict from, wanting to be fine with being in a doll to her desire to be a human again and all this good stuff. But yeah, there's just so much about it that I really love. It's really hilarious. And one thing that also makes it hilarious is how bad the acting and the writing is from the character Jesse and Katherine Heigl's character. Like, they are two dumbasses, and the stuff that they're doing just really makes no sense because their whole goal is to deliver Chucky and Tiffany, the dolls, to Hackensack, New Jersey, so Chucky could get the amulet and become, human again in the whole nine. But they were offered $500 to go there, and then another $500 when they get there, so $1,000 total. And Jesse's whole mind was he was going to have him and Katherine Heigl basically run away because they're two young lovebirds that where parental figures are getting in the way of them being together. And so he thinks that they are going to run away off of $1,000 and go live this amazing life. And he's hyping it all up, talking about some, I'm gonna be able to get a job, I'm gonna put you through college and all this good shit. Hey, motherfucker, you ain't about to do nothing. Shoot, that little $500 that you got initially probably went into the tank to pay for the gas in that Winnebago. Like, what is he talking about? But yeah, I just love the movie regardless of even the stuff that doesn't really make sense or is so self-referential. It was, a movie of the times, but I genuinely love it. So Spooky Gang, y'all drop down below what are some of your favorite horror guilty pleasure movies. There are plenty of bad horror movies out there, so I know that y'all are gonna have really creative lists of some of the movies that you truly enjoy as guilty pleasures. But yeah, y'all drop that down below. Anybody that's new to the channel, y'all go and subscribe to the kid. We're on the road to 10K subs. Y'all know how we rocking, dropping banger after banger after banger. I truly am working on the gaming aspect of things, so y'all give me a little bit of time for that. Gonna get that all set up and everything. But as always, y'all, I appreciate y'all, Spooky Gang, and until next time, y'all stay blessed and y'all stay spooky.